With me on the show today is one of LA's top brand and social media consultants to actors of all levels. It's an incredibly complex landscape in 2020. And Lindsay Luv is one of the experts that can help you navigate it. She's one of the most in-demand brand strategists that actors are turning to when they need to develop their personal brand and take their social media strategy to the next level. And with a verified following of over 107,000 already, Luv has worked with hundreds of top brands, including Chanel, Maybelline, Bentley, Virgin, Twitter, Armani, Levi's, the list goes on, and you can read all about it right here in her profile page on CWBLive. What I loved about Lindsay and why we were so excited to bring her onto the CWBLive consulting family was because she cares about actors and understands how tricky it can be to really get your brand out there and build a following in 2020. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about her expertise. Lindsay, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm great.
You've got an amazing bio, and it's so interesting. And we didn't even cover all the cool stuff you do in DJ and music. I mean, if everything you do wrapped in digital media, from music to fashion to brand consulting and all of these types of things, is it all the same world to you? Is that what's really going on in 2020? Talk to me about the industry. What industry would you say you work in?
Well, I feel like I don't like to say jack of all trades, but I feel like I kind of touch on a lot of different things. But where digital media comes in is that's kind of the mouthpiece to everything these days, right? You do something in the real world, and digital media is kind of how you tell everybody about it, right? Especially during all the different things going on in the world, it's just so important to have a really strong mouthpiece, and really that falls into the entire digital media landscape in every way.
When would you say, could you pinpoint a particular time or a year, and maybe in the last decade, where all of a sudden you felt like, okay, things are getting big now. There's a lot more options for actors maybe than there ever were before. I feel like we just got, and I feel old, but we just had social media, and now there's way more than just Twitter and Facebook. It's so big. How long has it been and felt this way in your mind?
Well, I feel like digital media has always been an important mouthpiece. I mean, I really started in that world even back in the MySpace days, especially being kind of strong in the music world. MySpace kind of already started getting you that digital footprint, and then it just kept escalating with Instagram and then Pinterest and TikTok and, Snapchat. There's so many things that just keep coming at you from every angle. What's interesting, though, is a lot of traditional talents, like actors, for example, tend to do their real world trade, and then they don't necessarily know how to then get the word out online and kind of make the two things meet in the middle and both be super, you know, really just.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. I'm curious too about today's actors, whether they're from LA, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, or smaller markets around the world in Canada, parts of Europe. UK is getting big. Actors are really trying to build their audience and following and build their brand. In your mind, which comes first, understanding your brand or building your following? Do you see it that way? Do they have to come in a certain order?
I think that like traditional talent has a tendency to just they've notoriously through time, they've just been really excelled at their actual trade, whatever that may be, as an actor or as a musician. What's happening nowadays is the first thing people are looking at a lot of times when they vet talent in any category, in any trade, is they go to look at your social media. They're kind of trying to figure out, do you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening? Are you getting the word out there about whatever it is you're working on? And that's been a huge kind of transitional thing happening, and why so many actors or different talent are really going to people like me. They're saying, hey, I'm an incredible actor. I'm doing all these great projects, but I don't necessarily know how to then translate all that success and all the great things I'm doing with my online presence. So they may be a big deal in kind of the real world, like in every day in their talent, but they're not necessarily getting that same kind of imagery happening online. So that's really the two are needing to meet more in the middle, and that's where somebody like myself comes in.
And you do some really important things with actors of all experience levels, right? From B-list about to explode, even bigger red carpet type work, to early on working actor getting out there slow and steady. you can help with content curation. You can help with engagement with their audience. You do it all, right? Is there anything in particular you don't do when it comes to social?
Generally speaking with social media, it's like so personal, right? So I always say I lead the horse to water. So my goal is to help people figure out how to do it themselves, the best. I feel like when sometimes with social media, it's so personal. It's such a personal mouthpiece. It's really you telling the world what you're up to. So for me, I'm trying to help you curate that and give the best version of yourself. It's like a stylist helping an actor, put together a great outfit. They're helping you put it together, but you have to wear it and own it and, kind of show up in it, right? So I am doing that for talent, essentially. I'm helping them curate the best version of themselves. But what I don't like to do is be the person who's necessarily doing the postings for people and so on. I think that's kind of pointless because ultimately they need to be constantly engaged with the platform.
Authentic and yeah.
And
I
they need
get
to
it.
be engaging with it. They need to be genuinely invested in utilizing social media and digital media. It can't just be me doing it for you. You need to get to a point where you are naturally like, I'm on the red carpet doing something, I'm going to pan the room and show all the cool people around me, or I'm going to get a picture backstage with my celebrity best friend or whatever it is. You need to get them to a place that they understand how to do digital media and how to use digital media. And I'm going to get you to the place on how to do it effectively and how to make it grow your audience, how people can see you even more clearly in the success that you are.
When you and I've talked before, and you really blew my mind with some really savvy, understanding of the fact that most actors jump into social and even their own kind of digital brand efforts without any kind of a plan at all. And that can be a really dangerous thing. And so what I thought was so great is you actually will help them develop a plan. And before you go to that event, or before you share the information while you are on set, or before you get on set, you should really think through, what are you trying to do and what do you want to share and how are you going to share it? And so many actors, I guess, don't even dive in with any kind of a plan, do they?
I absolutely think that there's this whole world going on where, like, influencers, for example, the traditional term influencers that's now happening is they build content essentially for digital media. Whereas a lot of talent, they already have a trade, right? It's about them capturing that trade for their digital media. So it's almost in some ways two different things, and eventually the two can combine. If somebody is famous or building fame or whatever in the real world, they can eventually also start adding in content as well. It doesn't just have to be them capturing what they're doing. It can also be them capturing maybe a new partnership with a brand, or they can be talking about vitamins or food or whatever it is. So I think it's a two-part kind of thing. It's them capturing their world and making it really beautiful and the mouthpiece really amazing. And then it's additionally, I love it. And then it's additionally them, getting the word out and partnering and so forth.
Speaking of personal brands, this is my personal brand, and I'm going to send him out of here on the way. But it does remind me, would you let me finish my conversation with Lindsay, please? Okay, I'll be right up. Close the door. What ages of actors will you work with? So many parents who have young actors who are on the rise are trying to figure out that landscape too. And you'll work with the parents and younger kids as well, won't you?
Absolutely. And I think that's even, I'm also a parent. So I think it's so important to also have a finger on the pulse of, like, what's appropriate, what's a good range, and how much you want to put your kid out there, what things you need to be careful of. For example, when you geotag things, like, for example, if you're dropping your kid off at school, you want to be cognizant of maybe you don't show the school, because if people say you're super famous and you're showing where your kid goes to school, there's certain security risks and so on. A lot of people don't think about these things. I see a lot of parents geotag everywhere they're going. This is why some celebrities have been robbed, because they literally say the moment that they are somewhere, people know they're not home. So there's all these things that are very interesting, especially for talent, to really be cognizant of, that they don't necessarily think of with social media, that I'm there to kind of remind them, hey, you might want to do this different, or do this, or be more broad, or, so with kids especially, you have to be so mindful of
I couldn't agree more. And, like you, I'm a parent, and I know how much you care about that and understanding that whole landscape. And I encourage all the actors out there, the younger ones too. Book a session with Lindsay, book it with your parents. It will save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration, and keep you a heck of a lot safer if you have that initial consult to understand all the risks and the opportunities as well for those young actors. But tell me as well, Lindsay, about in particular personal brand too. Before we even jump into social, you can help them define that. And that can be from the types of content that they're presenting to the products that they are wearing or talking about it. This whole new landscape now is allowing actors to be like influencers, and for these different brand companies to consider actors as a potentially other channel for them to market. Is every actor ready to do that, or do they have to get to a certain level? How does that usually work?
It's, it's so particular to each scenario. For example, somebody could be on a really hot new show, but maybe their digital media isn't yet necessarily matching how famous they are in the real world. But a brand might be really intrigued by them because they're on this hot show, and maybe they want to be part of the build, right? Maybe a brand wants to be part of a talent starting to explode in so many different ways, So there's that. And then there's the people who are, at the top of their game, and brands want a piece of that. They want to get involved. And then it's really about navigating, is this the right brand to match your brand? I come in and we look at the pulse of the brand as a whole. Does this make sense for your own branding? Does this make sense? Can you deliver what they want appropriately? Will it match up with what your fans are looking for from you as a whole? If somebody's like a parent, for example, maybe it is a great thing to match up with like a Pampers, kind of campaign or something of that sort. Maybe that makes sense. Whereas with somebody else, obviously that, they didn't have kids or whatever, maybe that would be, or their kids are, 18, it might be super awkward. So it's about kind of navigating the profile of the overall brand structure of each talent, and then matching it with partnerships. Additionally, I feel like a lot of talent, sometimes they're very unreachable. Like influencers put themselves out there. It's like, come get me, I'm ready to do sponsorships, whereas with traditional talent, like actors, for example, many of them haven't necessarily engaged in that landscape. And so they don't necessarily know that you can do all these crazy sponsored opportunities, but they just don't know that that's out there for them. So it's me saying, hey, you have 100,000 followers or 60,000 followers, whatever it is. These are some things that are available to you, and I can help you potentially partner up with great people that can get behind you, and vice versa, from everything from just giftings all the way through to paid promotions.
And what's so fascinating as well is among the different types of sessions that actors can book with you, sometimes trying to get off the runway and do it right is so important. In other cases, you're dealing with actors who are intermediate or advanced, and they've been doing it a while, and they might be making, really critical mistakes they don't even realize they're making. And you'll go in and there's a session you can do with Lindsay, where you'll audit their social as well, right? And give them a really honest and candid critique of what they're doing right, what they're probably doing wrong. And you won't hold back when actors need it most, will you?
Absolutely not. I'll never be rude about it, but I will let you know. I'll go in and I can look at insights, and I can look at just general things. How are you hashtagging? How are you geotagging? What times of day are you posting? What does your content look like? When I look at your page, what does it say to me as somebody who isn't you? You know what I mean? Like, I will literally sit down with you and we'll just go through it. And then they can ask me targeted questions, because a lot of times they know something's off, but they don't know exactly what it is. So a talent can come to me and say, hey, like, I keep posting, but these posts that I do seem to be getting a ton of love, but these other ones, nobody seems into them. What are your thoughts? And I can literally walk them through why I think one might be hitting and one might not. And, giving all the way through to very specific statistic insights, when to post, hours of the day. There's so many levels and layers that can be very kind of overarching, all the way down to very specific insight into the algorithms and Instagram.
And so many, we talk to casting directors every week on the show. And the number one overwhelming thing that comes back every time is, whether it's before the audition or most definitely after the audition, at some point, if you are in contention for that part or a serious callback, they're looking at your social media. And some actors don't realize that their next big part could be sitting so far out of reach because of a mistake they're making on social they don't realize is really being looked at. And And I think it's great that you can help provide that kind of assurance and understanding, Lindsay. I myself would not even know where to begin stuff like that, you know?
You know, especially with what I find interesting, and I'll use Instagram for an example, is, you know, your feed is kind of like you're going to a job interview every time you post in some ways. It's literally saying like, whatever you're trying to put out on your feed it has to be curated in some way. You know, it needs to be aesthetic and interesting. It needs to be captioned correctly. It needs to be tagged correctly. It's kind of like the outfit you put on for your job interview. Whereas like the stories, for example, are kind of the in between. If the feed is the book covers, the stories are the pages that you're reading, right? And those can be a little more laissez-faire and whimsical and so on. So for me, it's helping people to understand that as much as social media is kind of casual, it's also very important on how you're presenting yourself, especially if you're in any kind of a trade. Exactly what you said. That's like the new website. I mean, you should have a website and a publicist and a manager and an agent and all those things. But the first thing that people are looking for just right off the bat after they've met you, even if it's a friend, a lot of times they're going straight to your social media and seeing what you're all about. And it's like, it's kind of like a first glance. It's like swipe left, swipe right a little bit on some level. And so I'm trying to help you be the best version of yourself and present the best version of yourself.
Oh, I know you are. I know you are, Lindsay. And what I love about you is that, you know, you're not afraid to turn a client away if you don't think you can help them, when so many people in the business just want to have their hand in an actor's pocket.
Yeah.
You know, a small or a short consult with Lindsay could save you thousands and thousands of dollars wasted, where you may or may not even see any results at all in a tricky landscape. And I encourage you to work with Lindsay. We just think the world of her at CWBLive. Lindsay, final thought to you as we wrap. What would you say to those actors out there right now who are thinking of, for maybe the very first time, trying a virtual consultant and trying to understand this really big thing? Maybe they're a little trepidatious. What would you love them to know in order for them to feel great about booking a session with you?
You know, one thing I'll say right off the bat is, as I've been a talent myself, I've been on both sides of the industry. So I have been on the corporate side and the, you know, kind of the management and all that. And I've also been, I am a talent essentially myself. And I have gone to agencies, I have met with social media agencies and so forth. What's different about me is that I know it from both ends. I know from the end of working corporate, but I also know from the end of being a talent and being catered to and having brands reach out to me, and what those contracts look like and what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And more importantly, what worked for me online and what worked for my following online. And I bring that same attitude to people I work with. I really genuinely think it's so important for me to look at the client and also look at who's looking at them. So I'm looking at it from two ends. I'm thinking, what's going to work for you personally and as your own brand, and also what's working for the landscape, like what's working for the people who are looking to book you and the management and your publicist and all these different people. So I'm seeing it from both ends, and I can really relate to them because I so personally understand what it's like to struggle with the build and the growth and having brands come at you and sending you agreements, and you're going, do I want to do 2 feed posts? Do I want to do 1? Is this enough money? You know, I understand what it's like from so many levels. And so I think that's what makes me a special person to work with talent.
Well, you're understating that, and we couldn't agree more, Lindsay. I really thank you for your time today. I know we're going to talk again in the future soon. You can read all about Lindsay's experience, what she's doing with actors at all levels and brands in the profile page below. You can see there some of the sessions that she's offering for actors, and a great opportunity for those of you who really want to take your brand and your profile to that next level. Book a session with Lindsay and work together and see what can happen. Lindsay, thanks so much for doing the show. We'll talk to you real soon, okay?
Thank you so much.